Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Thanksgiving Eve show. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. I hope you all are having safe travels to your preferred destinations. Again, it is Thanksgiving Eve. It is time for family and, of course, everybody's favorite time of the year when it pertains to Thanksgiving, NFL football. Got a lot of great topics we are going to get to. Welcome to the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the Monday night action between the 49ers and the Panthers, but it's going to be an overarching subject about Bryce Young and his potential time could be ticking in Carolina. And like I said on Monday, I watched Shedeur Sanders tape. I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on it. It's going to be a great topic we can talk about. I'm going to talk about Ceedee Lambs and his drops that he's having and why he is a very important component going into tomorrow's matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. And lastly, we're going to discuss each and every game that is going to be on tomorrow during Thanksgiving, giving a pretty much little preview of those matchups. Thank you all for joining me this morning. But before we get into the show, always remember to like, subscribe, comment on the pod, check my podcast out on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into today's episode. Panthers 49ers, you know, it's kind of crazy, right? You know, I'm from North Carolina. I know I've said this 1,000 times, but this is a really funny conversation I have with a lot of my friends and family. You know, Carolina, pretty poverty franchise, if you really think about it, since the departure of the Richardson family, who previously owned the team. And David Tepper's the new owner. He's been pretty abysmal so far in his tenure in Carolina. And just the whole regime with the Richardson family and Cam Newton, Luke Kuechly, ever since that regime left, this franchise has been a laughingstock. And I recalled last week saying the Carolina Panthers got a primetime game. And obviously, when they planned the schedule previously, nobody thought the Panthers were going to be actually pretty decent this year. So the Panthers turned out to be pretty decent this year. They're going up against the 49ers. And I was telling a lot of people around where I'm from, and I was like, y'all, this could actually be a pretty good game. Like, this game can actually be pretty exciting. I was 100% wrong. Like, not even close to being right. This game was absolutely abysmal to watch. Because between Bryce Young and Brock Purdy, they both were having what millennials in today's age like to say a mid-off. Both of them was literally playing like, which quarterback is going to play worse today? Is it going to be Bryce Young or is it going to be Brock Purdy? But the main topic I really took away from this game from Carolina's point of view is more about Bryce Young. But let's just discuss the 49ers real quick. When I watched this game, I watched Brock Purdy. I know I haven't discussed much Brock Purdy and the Niners, you know, for the multitude of covering my YouTube channel. I discussed Brock Purdy when he got paid his money. But I've never been a huge fan of Brock Purdy. I really have always thought, and you might can attest to this from me watching Nick Wright so much. Me and him just pretty much see eye to eye when it comes to this conversation. Brock Purdy, I've always felt like is more of a benefit of having Kyle Shanahan as his coach. And another testament to that you could take is kind of like, well, Jayden, yeah, Kyle Shanahan is arguably one of the best offensive geniuses we have in the NFL. Any quarterback would be able to benefit from having him as your coordinator. But when you really look at Brock Purdy, he has a lot of deficiencies. And my main takeaway when watching this game and just seeing the amount of mistakes that Brock Purdy was making, I was kind of saying to myself, Brock Purdy getting paid $50 million proves to be absolutely insane. It is an absolute crime. It's absolute robbery what he's done to the San Francisco 49ers. And this is not about to be a Brock Purdy hate train, but I'm just bringing this up just from the context of how well Mac Jones has looked since he's been put in for Brock Purdy in the wake of Brock Purdy's injuries. You know, Brock Purdy's been injured with turf toe and the shoulder and everything else. And Mac Jones has looked like the Mac Jones who went to the Pro Bowl under not Sean McDermott, but Mike McDaniel. Well, not Mike McDaniel. I got the name mixed up at the top of my head, but the Patriots' current offensive coordinator. That is the Mac Jones we are seeing under Kyle Shanahan. But when we looked at Brock Purdy on Monday night, he does not throw a good football, velocity-wise. He's always been pretty accurate. He has great touch, but he has no zip on his football. He has no velocity, and we saw that on Monday because every single interception that Brock Purdy threw, outside of maybe the last one, but the first two that he threw, they were undercut by the cornerbacks because he has no zip on his ball. All he has is nice touch. And when you throw a ball like that, in the case of Brock Purdy, you got to make sure you miss. You got to make sure you at least miss by overthrowing it. You cannot underthrow your receiver. So when he threw that post route, that Jackson undercut, you got to leave that ball over the top of the receiver's head. And the same thing with the one that J.C. Horn picked off. You got to make sure the ball's way ahead of the receiver. If not, it is going to get undercut. And that is what happened with Brock Purdy. And as I previously stated, it feels like Brock Purdy, if he was in any other system, maybe outside of Sean McVay in Los Angeles, because Sean McVay has always been considered just as much of an offensive genius as Kyle Shanahan. They feel like they are the modern day Walshes. Like, they are great at West Coast offense. But it feels like Brock Purdy would be a bottom tier quarterback. And that is no slight against Brock Purdy, because we have to be honest. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason. He was the last overall pick in the NFL draft for a reason. It is because he has deficiencies at the quarterback position that isn't considered, what's the word I want to use? Efficient or compatible with what most GMs, coaches, and organizations look for in their franchise quarterback. He is short. He's not very athletic. He's not very efficient when he's with his legs. And he doesn't have a big arm. And he does not have a strong arm. All of those qualities, when you ask a GM when they're going to the NFL draft looking for their franchise quarterback, they're looking for all four of those things. And if you bring up the name Brock Purdy to them, they are going to look at you and laugh in your face. But Mac Jones so far has looked like the better quarterback. And we know the backstory of Kyle Shanahan really being in love with Mac Jones. Again, as I previously stated, Mac Jones had a lot of success with the New England Patriots. And please, let me look up the Patriots offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. Jesus, Mike McDaniel, Josh McDaniels, but Josh McDaniel, under Josh McDaniels, Mac Jones had success in New England. And he made the Pro Bowl. So we saw Mac Jones is pretty good at the quarterback position. And Kyle Shanahan was wanting Mac Jones coming out of the draft the year they drafted Trey Lance. And we've seen how well Mac Jones has been able to play. At one point during the game, I was sitting there saying, is Kyle Shanahan probably going to bring out Mac Jones? Because those 3 interceptions were abysmal. If it wasn't for Bryce Young playing as equally worse as Brock Purdy in that game, the 49ers would have got absolutely slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered. But I really got to give credit, and here's another takeaway I really thought about. John Lynch is just a phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal, general manager. The amount of talent, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, really popped off on the screen on Monday night. The amount of injuries that they've had, and I keep bringing this up. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Mykel Williams, your first-round draft pick in the 2025 draft, all of them are hurt. Your 2 elite All-Pros, potentially future Hall of Fame players, are out for the season. They are up in the press box. They showed them in the telecast multiple times. In some way, somehow, the 49ers are able to win games. They are 8-4. I've said this a million times, multiple times so far in my podcast. I'm sitting here like, if this was any other team, they would be sinking and trying to survive when it pertains to trying to make a playoff push. That's not the 49ers. They are 4 games above 500 through 12 weeks, 12 games into the season. That is phenomenal, and that has to do a lot with the GM, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and their ability to make and establish teams. Their team building skills are superior. I tell any GM so far in the league, take a page out of John Lynch's book. Like, players defensively were popping off the screen. That backup linebacker who's in for Fred Warner right now, he was flying everywhere across the line of scrimmage. Everybody, every GM, take a page out of John Lynch's book when it comes to team building. He's absolutely phenomenal. And lastly, I want to give credit to Christian McCaffrey. He's just an absolute stud. We saw right after Brock Purdy threw his 3rd interception, because, the Niners went down first drive easily with Christian McCaffrey. He was the workhorse and just went down and scored. And it feels like Kyle Shanahan was just trying to open the playbook just a little bit because you felt comfortable. You got a lead. Bryce Young, they look like they're not going to have a good time on offense. He was really trying to open up the playbook just a little bit. But Christian McCaffrey is just a workhorse. He's a stud. He's a future Hall of Famer. And at one point, like I said, was wanting to... The point I was trying to get to before I went on a little soliloquy there. When Brock Purdy threw his 3rd interception, I felt like Kyle Shanahan pretty much said, you know what, Brock Purdy, bump this. You're going to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. He is going to go win us this ball game. My Lord, did he not. Christian McCaffrey was phenomenal. Statistically, the other night, I don't know why I didn't have the box score up while I was sitting here talking about this game. But statistically, Christian McCaffrey was phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey, he averaged 3.7 yards a carry, which was nothing to really talk about, but he had a touchdown, and in the passing game, he had 53 yards. So altogether, he had almost 170 yards worth of scrimmage plays, and he got a touchdown, and was able to lead his team to a very, very convincing win. Now let's go ahead and flip the script to a big portion and my main point of this game, and my main takeaway, just because I can really resonate with this. Again, like I said, because I'm from Carolina, I root for the Carolina Panthers. I want them to be good. And this was a big game for them. You never have primetime games. And it was kind of like, yeah, we're 6-5 for a reason. Let's go show the world why everyone should take us serious and why we should be kind of legit. But they dropped the ball on this. And it has to do a lot with maybe the fact that Carolina probably just wasn't ready for the moment. It wasn't only Bryce Young. It was also Dave Canales. And I bring up Dave Canales because his offensive approach on Monday night was questionable in every single facet you can really think about. Between Rico Dowdle had averaged 6.3 yards a carry. Chuba Hubbard averaged 5.3 yards a carry. And between the two, they only carried the ball 9 times. If you're any other coach in the league and you have a quarterback who is in his 3rd year, he's been questionable his whole career, the one thing you're going to want to do is establish him an efficient run game. And if you're looking at that stat sheet in the middle of the game like, dude, with both my backs, I'm averaging over 5 yards a carry. How about let's help my young quarterback out? Just run the ball. I feel like whatever Dave Canales saw on film, maybe they saw it throughout the week leading up to the game that the Niners were pretty good at stopping the run and they're pretty weak on the back end, which is technically true. But sometimes my problems with coach is their inability to adapt. They always want to stick to the game plan. Wake up, Dave Canales. Read the game. Understand how the game is going currently. Adapt. You were having success in the run game. Who cares what you saw on film that week? It's always what's happening during the game. What is happening in the context of the ball game so far? You were having success running the football. How about And this game was relatively close for the most part. Even when the one pick that Bryce Young threw on the 1 yard line, you ran play action on the 1 yard line on first down. Give the ball to Rico Dowdle, one of the best running backs in the league this year. I feel like Dave Canales was really just trying to, he really was too smart for his own good. He was just being way too smart for his own good. And I really think he really, I keep saying really, but he honestly let Bryce Young down in this game. Again, Bryce Young wasn't good himself, and we're fixing to jump into him. But Dave Canales, it starts there. It always starts with the head coach. What type of game plan are you establishing for your quarterback? And for Bryce Young, having Bryce Young in that game drop back 29 times is insane. If you go back and watch how the Panthers played the Dallas Cowboys, that's the recipe that Dave Canales should have had. Bryce Young threw the ball like 20 times, and Rico Dowdle had like 40 touches. That's what should have happened. But it's time to ultimately get into the honest conversation when it comes to Bryce Young. And it was our biggest takeaway. We saw the type of performance that Bryce Young was able to put up against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, historically, Bryce Young has a lot of success against the Atlanta Falcons. But he is going on to year 3. The Carolina Panthers gave up a lot of capital to trade up in the 2023 draft and draft Bryce Young with the first overall pick. And that decision can set back a lot of franchises. But it seems like this year, Carolina has been able to hit on a lot of draft picks, and they really had a good team building process this year. But it's time to have an honest conversation about Bryce Young. And a lot of people are putting into question about Carolina possibly picking up that 5th-year option. This year alone, Bryce Young's first couple of years hasn't been great. First year, he was absolutely awful. Last year, you saw signs of life under Dave Canales. And this year, it's been a mixed bag. More bad than good. But it was signs of life. And you were really hoping in this game, live television, everybody watching, that Bryce Young would take the next step. And man, did he take a huge step backwards. Bryce Young was awful. That pick that he threw at the goal line was absolutely atrocious. I don't know what he was looking at, but it felt like Bryce Young was seeing stars all night. Bryce Young was 18 for 29, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Now, the one ball that he threw to Tedoroy McMillan, it was a bomb. It was a great ball. Bryce Young throws an accurate football. That is not the problem with Bryce Young. The problem with Bryce Young is his efficiency to play consistent. And Bryce Young ended the game with a quarterback rating of 13 and a passer rating of 60. And I talk about Bryce Young because it's hard not to do this, but we got to compare him to the quarterback that was previously there for the Carolina Panthers. And I'm talking about the guy, Cam Newton. Cam Newton was someone who revolutionized the Panthers franchise. He was the Carolina Panthers. That is the type of chokehold he had on the city of Charlotte and the Panthers organization and franchise. He won an MVP. He took him to the Super Bowl. Granted, his legacy is kind of tainted because a lot of people associate Cam Newton to the fumble that he had and not picking it up in the Super Bowl. But for the majority, Panthers fans beloved Cam Newton. Like, beloved him. I believe they would do anything. Carolina fans would do anything to have those type of 2015 vibes back. Prime Cam Newton. And Bryce Young does not come close to that. He doesn't have the personality that Cam Newton has. He doesn't have the physical attributes that Cam Newton has. And obviously, he does not have the talent. Nowhere near it. Cam Newton won a Heisman. I think Bryce Young won a Heisman too. I may be wrong. I don't know 100% sure, but we know Cam Newton won a Heisman. And he was super talented, and he was the number 1 overall pick, and he changed the franchise forever. And it's it's really unfortunate we have to compare Bryce Young to that, but it's the only logical way to do it because the Panthers are desperate to find the next guy. And trust me, it is so hard to find a quarterback. And that's why, people are questioning picking up his fifth-year option. Me personally, if I'm the Panthers, I would do it because Bryce Young has shown shades of good. That one throw again that he threw to Tedoroy McMillan, that's a good ball. And there's a multitude of plays that he had last week against the Falcons. Like, dang, Bryce Young can play in this league. But we got to get that more consistently. We can't have a game where you throw for almost 500 yards, and then in the very next game, you look like you don't even deserve to be in the league. Cannot have it. Not with the way the season was going, and if you were winning, the expectations of this game, if you win, you're going to be suited for a playoff spot. When's the last time the Panthers been to the playoffs? I cannot even remember. Was it 2019? Maybe, I think. It might have been the last time Cam Newton was the quarterback. But Bryce Young overall, he showed signs of potential, but he really has to figure it out fast. One thing in this league that we've noticed, it's happened so far with Anthony Richardson. And if I remember correctly, was he part of that same draft class? No, I don't think he was in that draft class. I think he was in Drake May's. Was he in Drake May's draft class? No, I think Anthony Richardson was in Bryce Young's draft class. But anyways, we've seen what the Colts have did with Anthony Richardson. They have pretty much just punted on him even being their franchise quarterback. Just already given up. So it's possible. Teams will do it. Same thing happened over there in Tennessee with Will Levis. They will punt on their quarterback. Bryce Young has to get it together fast. And just really unfortunate because he was very successful at Alabama. And I think he has the tools to be great, but we just got to see it more consistently. Man, that was 20 minutes long. I didn't think that was going to be that long of a segment, but that was a really juicy script. I thought that was pretty good. Let me know what y'all guys think. I think that was a good, honest conversation. But we're going to speed things up. Already going a little too fast. Already 20 minutes in. We got to get these topics. Got a lot to talk about. Next topic, Shedeur Sanders. I kind of dread talking about this because I feel like I get hate online every time I bring up this guy. But we want to talk about a little bit of Shedeur Sanders. I watched the tape, and here was my honest takeaway. And this is not only about the game, but it's more about going forward. Obviously, they announced that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the season, which I'm fixing to argue is the right decision. But there's a lot of overarching things when it comes to Shedeur Sanders as well. Quick thoughts of the game. I thought he made a couple of big throws. The one big throw that he threw to Isaiah Bond that possibly was short of the touchdown, that was a great ball. The one he threw to Jerry Jeudy when Jerry Jeudy fumbled the ball for, I don't know what Jerry Jeudy was trying to do. A pretty good throw as well. Made a couple big plays. But some deficiencies I saw. He looked slow. He looked unathletic. And ultimately, when you watch him, it's kind of like, he reminds me of just a classic 2000s quarterback. If you go back and watch Tom Brady, Big Ben, Peyton Manning, it's really what he reminds you of. Like he is such, the way he plays is literally like a classic 2000s quarterback. I don't know if that is a great thing to say in today's grand scheme of the NFL, where you kind of want a quarterback who is more of the lines like a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen when it comes to play style. I mean, you can compare Shedeur Sanders to Joe Burrow, but it just pops off at your screen that Joe Burrow is way more athletic than Shedeur Sanders. Just Shedeur looks slow and super unathletic in the pocket. But overall, as a whole, he looked a whole lot more efficient than Dillon Gabriel. And obviously, I'm not a fan of Dillon Gabriel. I never have been. I've said it multiple times. I did not think he was a third-round talent. And a lot of people and analysts really agree with me on that front. A lot of people projected Dillon Gabriel to be a 6th, 7th round quarterback. Definitely a day 3 quarterback. Unfortunately, that ended up being Shedeur Sanders, which I will never understand. But I've always thought that Shedeur Sanders was the better quarterback. And the positive thing that happened in that game in comparison to Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders was able to stretch the field. He was actually wanting to make big plays. There were a couple throws that he made on 3rd and long. He wasn't check down Charlie. He was actually throwing the ball down the field, trying to make a play and get a first down for his team. The way the game went is literally the reaction that on the big throw that he made down, moving to his right, which we got to give credit to Shedeur. That was a phenomenal throw. Like, fantastic. Strolling out to his right, throw on the run, and hits him right in the breadbasket. That throw was absolutely phenomenal. And Myles Garrett was pretty much just shell-shocked. He was like, I haven't seen that throw ever since I've had a Browns uniform on. That's the type of plays and moments that Shedeur Sanders was making. And that is something that Dillon Gabriel did not provide. So, overall, yeah, no, without a doubt, Shedeur Sanders is the best option going forward for the Cleveland Browns. And, you know, Shedeur is a 5th-round talent. We got to come to a realization with that. Many in the media, and a lot had to do with him being Deion Sanders' son and things of that nature. People in the media elevated him to something that people in the NFL didn't think. Now, there's still a gray area there. We don't know if Shedeur Sanders fell because of Shedeur Sanders, the personality, or Shedeur Sanders, the player. Might be a mix of both, but we got to come to the realization, and it's the honest truth. All 32 teams felt like this guy was not worthy of a day 1 and a day 2 pick. And there are multiple teams that needed a quarterback. The Saints drafted a quarterback. Steelers didn't draft the quarterback. It was the Saints, the Giants, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh took a quarterback, Will Howard, but I think Will Howard was took after Shedeur. Can't quite remember. But a lot, just all 32 franchises passed on Shedeur Sanders. And let's be honest, right now and maybe in the future, he might not be elite. But overall, and this is the most important thing when it comes to just the Browns, it gives fans something to cheer for. It makes the Browns watchable, and it's absolute smart marketing. Average fans, and even me, were like, I want to tune in and watch Shedeur against the Raiders. And I think Shedeur, coming up this week, has got a big game. I cannot remember who the Browns play, but it is a very, very big matchup. I want to let's see. Give me 1 second. Yeah, they play the Niners. That's going to be a good game at Cleveland. So Shedeur's going to get another start. You're going to want to tune into that game. And that is roughly a 1 o'clock kickoff. And the 1 o'clock slate doesn't look that stacked. So you can guess that a lot of people are going to be watching that game. So smart marketing on the Browns behalf, and they made a smart decision just for the fans. Like, you're going to get a lot of people that's going to be wanting to watch Shedeur, and they're going to be passing through them turnstiles. The stadium is going to be rocking, and that type of crowd reaction can help boost your team. But in the same breath, I think Shedeur can be a good quarterback in this league. I really do. I think he's got the intangibles when it comes to his play style. He's just got to get more consistent. It's the same thing with Bryce Young. But when you watch Bryce Young on Monday night and you watch Shedeur on Sunday, it's kind of like, you know what? Shedeur has capabilities to be just as good as Bryce Young, or even better. I honestly think if you put Shedeur in Bryce Young's shoes on Monday night, I think Shedeur would have probably made a lot more plays than Bryce Young. But I think Shedeur's got to get the professionalism thing together. And again, it's part of the overall conversation we were having about him and his, we don't know if he fell for Shedeur, the personality, or the player. But, Shedeur had a lot to say before and after the game. He was making this whole thing before the game, like, it was good. It was good to get a opportunity, this and this and that. And we know the whole little stunt that he had after the game where he was kind of like, man, we won the game. Imagine what this looks like if I had the first team reps. What if I have a full week of first team reps? He was kind of like rubbing it in everybody's faces and kind of like gloating, so to speak, you could say, like, oh, what happens if I can do this? What, he's saying a lot, but when you say stuff like this, you got to back it up. I like the confidence, and a lot of people, this has been another argument and another talking point when we have this conversation about Shedeur Sanders. A lot of people are down on him being so confident on himself, and there are other people who's like, you need to be confident in yourself. But I feel like there's a thin line you have to cross. Yes, you can be confident in yourself, but there's a difference between being confident in yourself and making idiotic statements to the point where you cannot back them up. Like, Shedeur's continuing to make comments like, dude, you got to back up. You got to practice what you're preaching. Your dad was able to do it. Like, he walked the walk and he talked the talk. I don't even know if I said that right, but you get what I'm trying to say. Shedeur, you gotta realize you're nowhere near as talented as your dad was. Not even close. Or athletic. So you're putting a lot of talk, but you got to be able to back it up. And when I look, when it pertains to just, personalities and franchises moving on from players, my first thought got into mind. Another player that had the type of polarizing personality that came to mind was Micah Parsons. Look what Micah Parsons was doing on and off the field. He was doing the streams, the podcasts, things of that nature. Shedeur, he does the same things. I don't think he's been doing it in season. But Shedeur and Micah really can compare in personality. And we saw that the Dallas Cowboys, without any hesitation, punted on Micah Parsons. Traded him away. Teams don't want to put up with that type of personality and that type of attitude in the locker room. And this is a guy, Micah Parsons, who, let's be honest, he's in a Hall of Fame. He's on the way to a Hall of Fame trajectory. So if a team was willing to get rid of a player who is a potential future Hall of Famer, what do you think they're going to do to Shedeur Sanders, who is nowhere near the talent or the player that Micah Parsons is currently? They will get rid of you. You are not indispensable. Look at Jackson Dart. Be like Jackson Dart. Take a page out of Jackson Dart's book. He was drafted ahead of you. He's played well, and he's good in the podium. I feel like Shedeur, I know he means well, and I love the confidence, but honestly, sometimes it feels like he's just shooting himself in the foot in some areas. But that is my overarching thoughts and what and my main takeaways from Shedeur Sanders' game debut, and my thoughts on him being the Browns quarterback going forward. Ceedee Lamb, my guy, got his jersey. I'm going to be wearing it tomorrow at Thanksgiving. First thing when I wake up, take me a shower. It's a thing for me. Always got to have got my Cowboys jersey on. A couple years ago, I wore Micah Parsons. Cannot do that this year, obviously. So we're going to be wearing Ceedee Lamb. If you did not know, he's got a big drop problem. I don't know the stat for sure. I looked it up roughly, but some way, somehow, Ceedee Lamb is pretty much in the conversation in having the most drops in the NFL this year. He had like 4 or 5 Sunday against Philly, and he had a lot in the first game against Philly. I don't know if it had I don't know if these drops have more to do with the Eagles or just the moment and things with George Pickens. We'll get into the conversation with that. But Ceedee Lamb's not had a great year so far. He hurt his ankle against Chicago. I think they played in Chicago week 3 or 4. He was out for weeks. He's dealt with some drops, so he's not had the year that everyone and everybody thought he was going to have. He's getting paid a fortune, and he's not even in the conversation with the elites of the elites. His partner in crime, his terror twin, and George Pickens has took a lot of the limelight away from the guy who is wearing 88, a number that is historic and passed along across the Cowboys franchise, from Michael Irvin, Dez Bryant. The list goes on and on. And they gave that number to Ceedee. He's part of the 88 club. So they felt like this guy is super important and very valuable for the Cowboys, not only now, but for the future. But we have to have a conversation about Ceedee Lamb. The drops have been a problem, but my problem with Ceedee hasn't been the drops. It is something that I really highlighted when it come to the things that I saw in that game Thursday when it come to culture and attitude. There were multiple clips, and I'm basing this off of sounds from the sideline. If y'all watch science, go look up on YouTube, the Dallas Cowboys page. They always do sounds of the sideline. Their media team. Y'all doing, give a shout out to the media team. They do an absolute phenomenal job with that. Great thing for fans and people behind the scenes who want to get an inside look to what the action looks like in the game. But if you go to the Dallas Cowboys YouTube page, Twitter, it don't matter. They always have sounds of the sideline. And we saw multiple clips of everybody with a great attitude during the game. Dak Prescott, multiple people on the defense, like the leadership. It was on display in those sounds of the sidelines. And we saw the multiple camera angles of Ceedee Lamb pouting and felt like making excuses for the reason why he wasn't catching the ball. Like at one point, he dropped one pass and he was looking at Dak, talking about he was doing this motion here, like kind of highlighting or foreshadowing, like, dude, lead me to the ball. Like I want the yak, just put the ball in front of me, not like right here in my hands where I can catch it. I want you to put it like over here. Just pretty much making excuses for the reason why he's not catching the football. Ceedee, if you really think about it, playing the quarterback position in the NFL, pretty darn hard. Not an easy thing to do. We've had all these conversations so far in the league when it comes to J.J. McCarthy, all these young quarterbacks struggling. It's very hard to find a good quarterback. And you have a guy in Dak Prescott who, in that game, shout out to Dak Prescott as well, passed Tony Romo and now has the most passing yards in the history of the Dallas Cowboys franchise. Give a big kudos to Dak Prescott there. So you got a pretty good quarterback, you think, and a lot of people are thinking like right now, Dak Prescott's in the conversation for second team All-Pro, fringe MVP candidate, even though he's not going to get no consideration because his team has a losing record. But these are all the things going on around Ceedee Lamb. And if you see your partner going for a $148 and catching the football back-to-back games, there's no excuse. Catch the football. If the ball's in your vicinity, catch it. Every clip that I saw, the ball was hitting you right here, like specifically in the final drive when Dallas got the turnover from the punt fumble, and they got the ball in the red zone. Dak hits him right here in the breadbasket. Right there. Like you couldn't even ask for a better ball. Tight window and everything. Dak put it in his bucket. Here's Ceedee Lamb. Drops the ball. Catch the doggone football. And I understand this argument with Ceedee. Ceedee is your prototypical yards after the catch receiver. Ceedee Lamb is not a guy who he can make a contested catch, but Ceedee is a receiver. You want to give him the ball in space because Ceedee at his best is when he's in the open field and he can make a move on anybody. That's what Ceedee wants to do. And that's why, and historically, Dak Prescott has always struggled with that. I think, and this is something I've said about Dak. Dak doesn't throw the most beautiful football. Like he doesn't. He's got better over, and I think this year he's done a pretty good job throwing like slants and stuff and hitting receivers in stride. But over the span of his whole career, not been a strong suit of his. And I understand why Ceedee Lamb probably feels like he struggles with the idea of not being able to like get the ball where he wants to, like right here, and just be able to run up the field as fast as he can and make a play, yards after the catch. But Dak Prescott has struggled with that. But I feel like this year Dak Prescott has done a pretty decent job at it. But the reason why I feel like George Pickens has been a much more complimentary player for Dak Prescott in comparison to Ceedee Lamb this year is just because of the fact that George Pickens is a guy where you throw him the ball anywhere in his vicinity and he's going to catch it. Why do you think that Dak Prescott, for the multitude of years, him and Michael Gallup were a great tandem? I think I saw this on Instagram roughly last week. These guys who cover the Cowboys, they made like a TikTok and they were showing like the top 10 receivers that Dak has threw touchdown passes to. Michael Gallup was third on that list. And Ceedee was like 1 or 2, and somebody else was number 1. I can't even remember. Anyways, like Michael Gallup was top 3, and Michael Gallup was the same type of receiver that George Pickens is. You throw it up to him anywhere in the vicinity, and he's going to catch the football. But ultimately, we need the Terror Twins. Ceedee and George Pickens at their absolute best. We need the type of... Y'all go look up the stats from Washington's game. That's the Terror Twins, the dynamic duo that the Dallas Cowboys fans, that I'm sure Dak Prescott and the whole league thought we were going to get with them two playing at their own time high. Look up those stats from the Washington game. They went off. But the reason why I bring up the Ceedee Lamb thing, ultimately, and the reason why I want to have a conversation about it, is because George Pickens is not going to be 100% on Thursday. They're saying that he's likely going to play as of right now, but he's not going to be 100%. And the Chiefs have a pretty good back end. That Watson dude's pretty good, and McDuffie, he's an all-pro corner. So Ceedee Lamb, you're going to have to pick up the slack. Like, Thursday is a must-win game. If y'all really think, and I know the locker room thinks this, if you really think you have the capabilities to make this playoff push, I'm not betting on George Pickens to absolutely be able to be physically able to ball out. I think he's going to be roughly 70%. I don't know if that's going to be good enough offensively. You're going to have to pick up the slack. It's go time. It's a big game. I don't know if George Pickens is, not George Pickens, but I don't know if Ceedee Lamb is having these drops because of the moment or the game. I don't know. But this is a big game. The Chiefs defensive backs are good, and show the world why in the NFL, why you're wearing number 88. Show Drew Pearson why. Show Michael Irvin why. Show Dez Bryant why. Drew Pearson and Michael Irvin and Dez Bryant, they showed up in these type of games. Show why you're wearing 88 and why you're making $34 million and you are the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. When we look across the league, we're not having conversations about Justin Jefferson having drops or Jamar Chase. None of these. Dude, you're Ceedee doggone Lamb. You've been an all-pro. You've had 1,500 yards before. Play like it and act like it. Ceedee Lamb hasn't showed in big games so far this season. This is a monumentous game. We need classic vintage Ceedee tomorrow. Because if not, it's going to be a rough day on offense for Dallas. So Ceedee, catch the doggone football and show us a Thanksgiving classic. I remember the game you had a couple years ago, 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, when we played the Giants. I need that, Ceedee. Yeah, I need that. I have all faith in Ceedee Lamb. Okay, I do. I'm a Ceedee Lamb stan. He's my guy. I bought his jersey. He's my favorite player in the NFL. Hey, Ceedee. You know better. I know he's been in the media all week already talking about he's got to catch the you-know-what football. You better. Because me and you's going to have a come to Jesus meeting. If I even see you drop a ball tomorrow, I might throw my plate at the TV. I want to be able to enjoy my turkey in peace. You about gave me a daggone. You were really getting on my nerves Sunday. Anyways, I'm off my tangent. All right, y'all. Let's see, roughly 45 minutes in. Got just gonna briefly, and I mean briefly, I might just go ahead and crunch these games together into one video, honestly, because this is gonna be nice, quick, and small. We're gonna just pretty quick preview the upcoming games for tomorrow on Thanksgiving. So the first game we're going to get to is Packers and Lions. This is the first game roughly at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody will be enjoying their turkey mostly by then, not Jayden. But big takeaway from this game. Both teams need a win. Absolutely. The Lions haven't played well all around. They let Jameis Winston give them a run for their money on Sunday. And the week before that, they got embarrassed on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. Excuse me. And the Packers, they haven't been great on offense. They got a Super Bowl caliber defense. But offensively, the Packers have been playing sloppy. So both teams going into this game have a lot of deficiencies, respectively, for both of their teams. But really, honestly, when you look at the rosters, the Packers have the upper hand on paper. I think the Packers have the better offensive line. They got the better defense by a long shot. I think the only thing right now on paper that the Lions may stack up better against is quarterback, with an asterisk, because we've seen Jared Goff in the cold. Not a good quarterback. But this game is going to be in a dome, so we might get good Jared Goff. But I think they have the upper hand at the quarterback position, definitely at running back, and the wide receiver position. But if Jordan Love doesn't turn the ball over tomorrow, I honestly feel like the Packers are going to win this game. Because offensively, the Lions have been in disarray. If it wasn't for Jahmyr Gibbs going absolutely Super Saiyan on Sunday, the Lions would have lost. Should have lost. That was just a classic Giants gag on Sunday. But I do not like, and this game might honestly have shades of week 1. I do not like the matchup with this defense against this offense. The offensive line has not played well. They started, we had a conversation week 1 about the offensive line of the Lions being a question mark, specifically in the interior. After that game, they got a couple of good gains in. They've played well, and it's felt like they've kind of reverted back to, oh Lord, this might be the worst part of our team type conversation. The Giants were able to get to Jared Goff on Sunday, and we know how good that defensive line is for the Packers. Micah Parsons, he's up there in top 5 in sacks in the league this year. He's over there balling, and that defensive line can get to you. And we know if you get to if you get to Jared Goff, he kind of turns pumpkin. Like, Jared Goff is your prototypical classic quarterback. He wants to sit in the pocket and he wants to pick you apart. Jared Goff is not athletic enough to get out of the pocket and make plays. If you get to Jared Goff and move him off his spot, which it happened against Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, Jared Goff is not a good quarterback. And that's what happened in week 1, and it feels like it has the potential to happen tomorrow. But the Lions need this win, honestly, for self-confidence. They've played poor the last 2 weeks. And if you really look at it, they need this win, because when you win this game, you got Dallas next week. And if Dallas wins tomorrow as well, that game is going to be a must-win for the Lions. So, and you're going to be in the run for, how do I want to put this? A playoff spot, pretty much. And you kind of need these games, because if you can't win your division, you're going to be fighting with Dallas for that wild card spot. And that game becomes crucial, because if you lose this game, you're going to go to 7-5. And if you lose next week to Dallas, Dallas is going to have the tiebreaker against you. And I say that because their schedule, the Lions' schedule, gets absolutely brutal going forward. Like, their schedule, I think, honestly, in comparison to the Bears, well, the Bears got a pretty tough schedule too, but I think the Packers might have the lightest schedule going forward. But between the Lions and the Bears, the Lions might have the worst schedule going forward. So they really, really need this game. This feels like more of a must-win for the Lions than the Packers. And none of these games are going to be part of my picks of the week. Obviously, I'll have a show on Friday discussing my favorite picks of the week. Honestly, what's the spread on this game? I think the spread, right now currently is The Lions are favored -3. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I might take the Packers +3 here. I like the Packers in this game just because I do not like what I've seen offensively. This defense is not going to let the offense and Jahmyr Gibbs do what they did against the Giants. Like, the Packers aren't going to have that. And the Packers have one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL. So they're going to have to put the game in Goff's hands, and I'm not trusting Jared Goff because they're going to get Jared Goff. So if I had to pick, I think I might have the Packers winning this game. Moving on to the next game. We got Ravens-Bengals Thursday night. That is the big night game. I don't know why my voice doesn't want to go out. But ultimate takeaway from this game, honestly, is this game feels like it feels like it has no meaning. Let's just be totally honest. Every team in this division is not good. Let's just go to the realization. The Bengals are not good. They have a horrible defense, probably the worst defense in the NFL. And the Baltimore Ravens have not played good football. They've been 1-5. Now they are 6-5. So they've won 5 straight games. And in those 5 straight games, not played really hard opponents. You played the Jets last week on Sunday, and the Jets were kind of giving you a run for their money. But, you know, it's the Jets. They find ways to lose. So the Ravens have not played good football. And in the grand scheme of things, both teams feel like, and honestly in that division, it feels like from the AFC, the team that makes a deep playoff push is not coming out of that division. From the Steelers to the Bengals to the Ravens, none of these teams, I feel like, are going to be in the championship round, maybe even the divisional round of the playoffs. I feel like easily none of these teams, none of them are going to be having a deep playoff run. But the big thing is entertainment value is super high. If you didn't know the news, Joe Burrow is going to be making his first start since week 2. So he's going to be back on the field. It's going to be Joe Burrow versus Lamar Jackson. Got that whole storyline going on. You know, you still got Derrick Henry. Jamar Chase is going to be back. T. Higgins ain't going to play. But the stars are going to be there during the game. And, you know, Joe Burrow's playing, so we might go ahead and get us a classic Joe Burrow light show. We know the Ravens defense is not the best. They've been able to give up a couple of good games here or there. They've played pretty decent lately. But ultimately, the back end can be had. So Joe Burrow, we might get a classic Joe Burrow game tomorrow. But we know Lamar, he's been pretty hurt. So who knows what the offense can look like. But all jokes aside, let's be honest, all jokes aside. I know I'm saying this game might be meaningless, but all jokes aside, from an analytical and, you know, critique perspective, the Ravens really need this game more than the Bengals. I don't think the Bengals have a shot of making the playoffs. I really question why they're bringing Joe Burrow back so fast. Their season just spiraled, and the Ravens are the only team I consider a threat in the playoffs, but they're not playing good football. So obviously, the Ravens need to keep this train going, just in case the Steelers might show signs of life in getting that winning that division and getting that playoff spot going into the playoffs. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, this game is pretty much just for entertainment value, and I really, really, really don't see either of these teams when it pertains to the Steelers, the Ravens, or the Bengals. I don't see none of them making no noise in the playoffs, whichever team makes it. But it's geared up to be a very entertaining watch, and who knows? We might get a big shootout game. Might be a 40 point game. The over-under in this game, I don't know what it is, but we might get a 50, 60 point score in this game. Sign me up for it. Entertaining. I'll have it with my turkey. The last game that we are going to discuss is obviously, I saved the best for last, Chiefs, Cowboys. And I didn't give my pick for that game. I'm picking the Ravens. The Ravens are at home. That's the only reason why. If they were at Cincinnati, I would probably reconsider that. But give me Lamar Jackson. Backs against the wall. They need it for playoff consideration. That's going to be my pick. But Chiefs, Cowboys. This is the best game tomorrow. I'm not saying that for bias because I am a Cowboys fan. I'm just saying that for the grand scheme of things. Like, this game is monumentous for both teams. I discussed it a little bit earlier when we talked about Ceedee Lambs, but Both teams are fighting for a playoff spot. Kind of like most of the Chiefs, because the Dallas Cowboys, like, they have to be perfect, like legit perfect when it comes to getting these wins for the rest of the season. So they have unrealistic, somewhat, playoff chances, but the Chiefs really do. The Chiefs, if they win this game, they are sitting very well and getting a chance to make the playoffs. Because if I currently see the seedings right now, I want to say that the Chiefs are currently out of the playoffs. Yes, the Chiefs are 10th right now in the AFC. They are currently out of the playoff picture. So this is a big game for the Chiefs. And obviously a big game for the Cowboys because they also have playoff chances as well. Ultimately, I think this game is going to be won defensively. Kind of cliche to say because everybody thinks defense wins championships, but let's just be honest. Both offenses have the capability to pop off. We know how well Dallas has been. The Chiefs going into this game is the more questionable offense, but you still have Patrick Mahomes. You have Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce. You still got all these weapons, so they are liable to pop off. And the Cowboys back end, a little questionable. So this game really feels like whoever wins is going to win the defensive battle. All it being the Cowboys, because to me, the Cowboys, they're not going to let the Chiefs run. And the Chiefs has been, not Chiefs, but the Cowboys have been very great at stopping the run ever since they got Quentin Williams. And the Chiefs, so far this year, cannot run the football. So this game is going to be won. The only way the Chiefs are going to win is if Patrick Mahomes sits back and dices the Cowboys up. Can be done, but it can be a little questionable because we saw Patrick Mahomes last week. Didn't look the greatest. He made plays when he needed to, but he didn't play well in the grand scheme of things when it comes to passing and throwing the football. And honestly, from Dallas's perspective, this feels like a classic game that the Dallas Cowboys lose. Mahomes coming to Jerry World for Thanksgiving honestly feels like prime Tom Brady coming to Dallas when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls and being super dominant. That is honestly what this game feels like because I'm scared to death. I can't lie. I can't remember the last time Dallas played the Chiefs. I think it was roughly 2-3 years ago that I really vividly remember us playing Kansas City. This team, just Patrick Mahomes is scary. We're talking about a Patrick Mahomes, and I discussed it Sunday. He's the Grim Reaper. He's our age's Tom Brady. He scares the living life out of you, and they're primed for this moment. The Chiefs have the upper hand when it comes to experience being in this moment. The Chiefs has been to 5 out of the last 6 Super Bowls. This game for them on tomorrow will feel like any other game. For Dallas, on the other hand, this game may feel like their first Super Bowl. Like they are not experienced in this environment at all. Backs against the wall. Dak got to make plays. Defense got to make plays. Yes, to Dallas's credit, kind of had the same vibe Sunday against the Eagles. Down 21-0, you come back fighting and crawling, and you won the game. But still, Jalen Hurts ain't Patrick Mahomes. No disrespect Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts is not Patrick Mahomes. Game on the line, I'm trusting Patrick Mahomes to seal the deal. That final drive where Jalen Hurts got sacked, kind of trusting Patrick Mahomes to go down and make that a game-winning drive. So this game absolutely scares me. I'm scared. I'm only going to be comfortable if Dallas is up like 2 scores going into the final drive of the game. But the Chiefs hasn't been playing well. And if I had to pick who's going to win this game, my heart is telling me the Cowboys, but my analytical brain is saying the Chiefs. I feel like the Chiefs know the implications of this game, and they're going to be ready to play. The real question mark and where things get a little murky, and there's a lot of gray area leading up to this game, is how tired are both teams? How beat up are both teams? We know Kansas City, they had the football a lot offensively on Sunday, and they went to overtime. So they're tired. Dallas, on the other hand, had a big battle against the Eagles. Got a lot of injuries on the injury report. Both teams have a lot of injuries on the injury report. So this game this game feels like it's going to come down to who's going to get the defensive stops, who's going to end up more healthy at the end of the game, and who's going to make the big plays. That is my thoughts about the Chiefs and the Cowboys tomorrow. I can't say who I'm not going to make a pick who's going to win. I'll give it to you this way. My heart says the Cowboys, obviously because I'm a Cowboys fan. It's Thanksgiving. I want my team to win. I want to sit and enjoy my turkey and watch my team sack Patrick Mahomes and send him packing to Cancun with the possibility of not making the playoffs for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era. That's what I'm going to be rooting for, of course. But my analytical mind, my logical brain, my non-biased brain feels like the Kansas City Chiefs are going to come up with a victory because of their experience and, as I stated on Sunday, their championship pedigree. That is all I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all enjoy your time with your families and Thanksgiving. I hope you stuff your stomachs, eat a lot of turkey, have enough for leftovers on Friday. You can enjoy your Black Friday shopping on Friday. I'm not. I'm going to be sitting and watching some football, getting some homework done, things, etc. But thank you all for joining me. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the podcast to a family or a friend. Check out my podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And most importantly, I love you guys. Peace, love, and positivity. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you on Friday.